Hello, all my friends out there. So, this is lesson 0. I'm actually recording it after I've recorded 10 other lessons. And the reason is because somebody who's been following along with these videos contacted me and was having troubles. A number of the commands and tricks that I was teaching weren't working for her. And after talking to her for a moment, I realized what the problem was. She's not running bash. Now, in those other lessons, I mentioned bash as being the command line that we're learning, but I didn't really talk about the fact that there are various different command line interfaces for Linux and Unix, and your operating system might not be using bash right out of the box. So to go through this particular tutorial, you're going to need to be running bash. So I've just set up our student account here so that she's running a different um, a different command line interface. Let's find out what command line interface she's running. I can type ps -p $$. And what that means, PS is a command that gives us all of the processes that are running, depending on what I'm asking for. It gives us processes that we're running. The -P says I'm asking for a specific process with a specific ID number. And that $$ is sort of like a magical variable that the system uses to say, this process ID number that I'm in right now. And I'm going to hit enter. And the process that I'm in right now is running ZSH. You see here under the command, ZSH. There's another way to find out what shell you're running, but it's not necessarily as accurate. Because it's possible for you to have a shell variable that says that you should be running a certain shell, but there are reasons why you might not actually be running that shell. But I will teach you how to find out what your shell variable thinks you should be running. Okay, so echo, that just prints a thing to the standard output, which in this case is the command line. And then all capital letters, SHELL. So in double quotation marks, $, all capitals, SHELL. So that's going to echo out the shell environment variable for us. And it shows us that the environment variable for shell is /bin/ZSH. Now, I want that to be bash. But before I go any further, I just want to tell you, if for some reason you want to do this course, but you don't want to change what your ordinary shell is, what your shell variable is, you can do something very simple. At the beginning of every class, you can just type bash and hit enter, and now you'll be running in bash. Do you see how the command line, the way that the command line looks, changed? So if I say, whoops, touch typing fail, if I say ps-p $$ again, now you can see that I'm running bash. But watch this. Wow, why do I keep moving my fingers to the wrong side? Okay, echo $shell, right? We can see that I still have the same shell environment variable for the shell as I did before. It's just that now I'm running bash. So from here, I can do everything that's in the class without actually changing my environment variable. When I exit out of this, I'll be using ZSH like I was always using ZSH. But now I'm going to teach you how to actually change your environment variable for the future. All right, so I'm going to exit out of bash, and let me clear the screen so that it's clear and simple. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that bash is one of the options that I could possibly be using, right? So what are the options? If I type cat, etc., shells, now all that's going to do is it's going to print the contents of a file called shells that is in the directory, etc., onto the screen. And here are the valid login shells. There's bin sh, bin bash, bin rbash, bin dash, user bin screen, bin zsh, and user bin zsh. So I do have bash. I can use bash. So if you type cat/etc/shells and bash is not one of your options, then you should stop the video right here, go and install bash. There are a bunch of different ways to install software onto Linux machines depending on what flavor of Linux you are running. Is it a Debian-ish Linux? Then you can use apt-get. Is it a Red Hat-ish Linux? Then you're going to be using a tool called Yum. If you're using an Arch-style Linux, there's yet another tool. So, since I don't know which version of Linux you're using, I recommend that you stop now, and based on what kind of Linux you're running right now, if you do not know how to install software, go Google that. How to install bash on the name of the Linux that you're running right now. Okay? Once you've got that installed, then come back here. Okay, so for those of you who do have /bin/bash in your available valid login shells, what we're going to do is we are going to change what your user has in a file called /etc/password. So first I'm gonna just show you how to find out what your shell is already. Okay, so grep, double quotes, caret, that upward upside down V thing, that's called a caret, $, all capitals, user, double quote again, space /etc/passwd. So grep is a tool that looks for something that fits a pattern that you have given it. The pattern that we're giving it is the current user, and the place we're trying to find it is in a file called password inside of the etc directory. And here we see the line. Bleepy is my user, and way over here at the end you see that /bin/zsh. Now we're going to want to change that. Okay, so my student account here does not have sudo privileges, but I'm going to assume that you do have sudo privileges. Okay, so I am moving into my actual personal account right now so that I can do this with sudo. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use sudo nano /etc /passwd. So sudo lets you do a command under some other user, usually root, and hit enter. Now you have to put your own password, your regular, ordinary password for logging in as yourself. And hit enter. And now you should be able to see the contents of /etc /passwd. Now I'm just going to use the down arrow and just go down. In my case, right here at the very bottom is where the user bleepy is. You may not be able to find yours so quickly. You may have to search through the file or go line by line until you find your username. We will talk more later in later lessons about how to find things within files quickly, but this is the 0th lesson, so I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. So I went to the end of that line, I erased ZSH, and now I'm going to type bash, and then hit enter, and then I'm going to Control O to write out, and yes, I'm gonna write out that file, and then Control X to exit from there, and now I have changed the shell for bleepy. Now let me su bleepy, so I'm changing back to bleepy. You shouldn't need to su to your own user at this point because you should be still in your same user. Sorry, I needed to be able to think while I was typing my command. All right, now as you can see, I am in bleepy, and we have the familiar bash command line looking thing. Let's see. PS space -p space $$. Hit enter, and it's bash. And I can also go up and echo the shell variable, and it's been bash. So now I know I'm in bash. Now I can do everything in the bash the command line introduction to the Linux command line class. At some future date, I may do additional lessons that specifically focus, or a series rather. It won't be part of the series that I'm doing right now, but there may be a series in the future where I do ZSH or some other command line interface that is popular, by request. So if you have a specific request, you want to learn something other than bash in the future, drop me a comment. Let me know. Because the comments and the feedback you give me help me to make these lessons relevant. And I hope that this was not too confusing for a 0th lesson. If you do have questions, if you do need help, please comment here. You can also find me on Twitter at Elior Sterling. I'm at Elior Sterling on Twitter, and you can send me a message there and ask me for help. I am more than happy to point you in the right direction if anything here was too confusing. All right, thanks very much. See you next time.